Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Colleen Bass, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement West Coast for the University of Maryland Alumni Association. We are excited that you are able to join us for today's webinar, How to Write the Best Job Application of Your Life, presented by Danny Rubin. This webinar is part of the Alumni Association's Professional Development Webinar Series, in which we hope to provide thought-provoking and valuable content that will help alumni like you achieve your personal and professional goals. We have a lot of information to cover today, but we will take questions at the end of the webinar. Feel free to submit any questions you have throughout the presentation using the question box located in the GoToWebinar control panel. Danny Rubin is an award-winning author and the founder of Ruben Education, a premier educational resource for business communication skills. The company provides books and curriculum to high schools and colleges nationwide on proper writing and speaking skills for employment, entrepreneurship, and leadership. Rubin is a former TV news reporter for WTKR News Channel 3 in Norfolk, Virginia, and consultant to NBC's Meet the Press. He also works today in public relations at Rubin Communications Group, a firm based in Virginia Beach, founded by his father, also a former TV reporter. Rubin is a graduate of the University of Virginia and received a master's in broadcast journalism from the University of Maryland, College Park. And now we'll get started. Danny, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for letting me drop in today and share some career advice with you. I appreciate that. I always like to help the Maryland community because it helped me a great deal. As she said in the bio, getting a master's in journalism launched my career. And while I don't work in TV news today, all those skills that I learned play a major role in the work that I do. In fact, I'm going to address many of those skills that journalists sort of take for granted or do out in the field and show you how to communicate like a journalist to advance yourself wherever you want to go, whatever job application, resume, cover letter you're working on. The skills that we'll cover today will help you and help you think like a journalist and most importantly, like a storyteller. And I'll throw that out there as a tease and you'll understand what I mean by the time we get to the end of this webinar. So again, as was said, founded Ruben Education, and we provide materials to schools, actually students as young as 6th grade through college, learning how to write proper emails, use the phone appropriately, hold face-to-face conversations, write and speak about ourselves and about others to open doors and lead to new opportunities. I was a journalist. Now I work in PR, so I've seen all sides of the communications field, and I bring those skills to bear in presentations like this. And a Maryland grad, 07, so already 12 years ago, finished at Maryland the master's program, and then went off into the world. And down there in the left-hand corner is my Twitter handle, so if you're on Twitter, that's where you'll find me. Send me a note. I'll always get back to you. Danny H. Rubin. These are some of the universities and companies that I work with or have provided material to. NYU, DePaul in Chicago, Texas A&M, working with right now, providing email etiquette and LinkedIn lessons to their engineering school. They have a very large engineering program, and we're working with a track of student leaders in their honors program. And I've also shared these techniques with employees at USAA, DuPont, and ADP, the human resource company. So sharing these skills in a variety of places, wherever we are in our lives, starting in school, out of school, young, I won't say old, let's say wiser, more seasoned. We all can improve how we write, how we speak, and how we carry ourselves in the professional world. So this is a glimpse at some of the clientele, so to speak, that Ruben Education has worked with or partnered with or presented to over the years. Also, I want you to know that the advice that I'm sharing today is drawn from 3 different books that I have written. And I'm not going to make a hard sales pitch here. They're on Amazon. You can take a screenshot or make a note. But each of these books is a collection of over 100 templates, examples of best practice for communication out in the world. The blue one, wait, how do I write this email? All about writing and speaking well for employment situations, networking, LinkedIn profiles, thank you notes, job interview requests, all the writing and speaking around going after an opportunity. That's what the blue book covers. The green book, promoting my business, all about writing and speaking well for entrepreneurship. If anybody out there is starting up their own business, their own startup, stoking a hobby, it's becoming something real. This contains how to write a press release, a fundraising pitch, website content like your mission statement, your About Us page, all kinds of writing and speaking skills to promote something new. And wait, how do I lead my team? Writing and speaking as a leader, as a manager, as an aspiring leader. How do you communicate well to your employees, to customers, other stakeholders, investors? How do you make sure that every word comes across the right way, sets the tone, and makes you come across as a bona fide leader? So each of these books, it covers a wide variety of skills. And if you think you want to strengthen one of those spots, like I said, it's on Amazon and not too hard to find. But I did want you to know where these techniques come from. They're based on books that I've written over the past 5-6 years. Again, after Maryland, get out in the world, and the book bug struck me, and here I am with 3 of them covering different topic areas. So what are we going to do today? I want to touch on 3 different sort of quick hit exercise that can help you be a better communicator as soon as this webinar is over. This is all action-packed, practical, tangible information. Not a lot of high-level lecture in here. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the wrong spot. I want to give you something hands-on that you can do in the next hour. So we're going to learn how to edit our own work in 3 minutes time. A simple little editing exercise that you can, I don't know if this will be posted. Colleen, will this webinar be posted somewhere
Yes, the
for them to
recording
see
will
after?
be shared
Okay,
afterwards.
great. So you can reference this later, but how to edit yourself quickly, tighten up your work, words that we don't often need, but we throw in out of habit. Then we're going to learn about the best way to share your work experience on your resume. So think about your own bullet points right now, and we're going to learn how to bring the details of our life, the specifics of the experience to the surface so the reader can understand quickly what makes us so special. And then we're going to cover a topic near and dear to me as a former journalist, which is why you need to rethink your cover letters, and you need to learn to tell a story of your own work ethic instead of repeating your resume or using lots of adjectives that say, please trust me, I'm a great person, I work really hard, and I'm passionate. We're going to learn to be much more specific and engaging by telling a story of how we fought through a challenge. Okay, so learn how to edit, spruce up our resume, tell a great story, and lastly, I want to end with a little bit of a lecture, if you'll indulge me, a little bit of high-level thinking, in that I explain that when you use strong communication skills, you level the playing field for yourself, and you do not let anybody judge you on any of those surface details, like your name, how you look, where you came from. We all have biases out in the marketplace, but when you can communicate well, you cut through all of that noise. And all that matters is how you conduct yourself, how well you can describe yourself, and how well you can engage with others. And that's the kind of person an employer wants to hire. So we're going to end on a little bit of high-level thinking, but we're going to start down in the nitty-gritty. So let's get right down to it. All right. This is a page from the book, Wait, How Do I Write This Email? Okay. And this is what I want you to do from now on. When you're about to send off a big email or a document, presentation, summary, whatever you're writing, I want you to go through this little checklist. Okay. I want you to bring up the search function on your screen. It's Control F or whatever it is. And I want you to look for these words to either remove them or replace them. The first bullet is very, just, and really. I want you to start removing adverbs from your writing. We think that by saying we are very excited, highly motivated, that it changes how the words feel, but actually highly motivated means just the same as motivated. And there may be a better word than motivated, more descriptive to the experience, but highly motivated adds no value, just takes up time and space. So I want you to go through your writing and at minimum, look for very, just, and really. You can also start looking for any other adverbs, all the ones that end with ly. Generally speaking, they can go. In fact, I just did it right there in my own talking. Generally speaking is an excess adverb. We see how we do it in our day-to-day. When we are writing, we want to look out for those adverbs and cut them loose. The next bullet, the word that, as in, I believe that you are correct. Say that line to yourself in your head without the word that. Do we need the word that? No, we don't. But again, we toss the word in out of habit. So if you go search for the word that throughout a document, an email, you may find it 10, 15, 20 times. That's 20 less words the person has to read and gets the person to the end of your writing exercise, whatever it is, that much faster. The word quite, again, another adverb. We often include the word quite to sound sophisticated. We don't need it. Doesn't matter. Adds no value. The word thing. If we're in the habit of using the word thing too often, the reader doesn't often know the noun in question. Let's ask ourselves, is there a more specific word than thing for this sentence? What noun is in question? What am I referring to? We want to be as specific as we can. Vague language in our writing does not help. It pulls the reader further away from us. The word utilize. Many times, I don't know how many of you are recent Maryland grads, but many times we come out of college and we are conditioned to write big essays. They say 10-page, 12-page, 14-page essays. So we just write and we write and we write. And we use words we don't often use with our friends. A word like utilize. Let's use the word use and maintain in our minds, are we using words that we say day to day to our friends, to our family, or are we reaching for the thesaurus too often and trying to incorporate words that we don't often say, but we think will make us look smarter? I promise you it has the opposite effect. I want you to use proper grammar, of course. We're not sloppy. We don't write people in professional situations like a text message, but we also don't use words and phrasing that we're not comfortable with in an attempt to over-impress. Now, the words get or got. Those are called often lazy verbs or crutch verbs because we can use get or got for so many actions, so many situations. When you stumble across the word get or got in your writing, ask yourself, is there a better verb to describe the action? Because get or got can stand in for so many different actions and they're not interesting to read or to hear out loud. So get or got need to go away as much as possible. And lastly, this is where you'll remove the most words from any writing exercise. INGs. The boy is running. The boy runs. Let me give you a better example of that on this next slide. Okay. At my most recent job, I was responsible for managing projects, working with clients, and overseeing our budget. Now let's remove the INGs from that sentence to see how it changes, how it feels now. At my most recent job, I managed projects, worked with clients, and oversaw our budget. The first sentence has 18 words and 31 syllables. The revised sentence with the INGs removed has 15 words and 22 syllables. Also, doesn't the second sentence sound much more assertive, more confident, more approachable? There's a feeling when we cut out INGs and it's more direct in our tone. So everything about that second sentence is better than the first one. It's shorter, it's more impactful, sounds better, reads better. Across the board, it's a better sentence. So your challenge is to go back to your work and say, where are the INGs? And how can I reduce the INGs down? How can I get them out of my writing? It'll have a tremendous impact on how your work is perceived and also the length of the things that you write, because INGs take up so much space in the course of whatever it is that we write. And I could have said just then, whatever it is we are writing. Again, it's always working on catching myself in my public speaking as well. Whatever it is we write, period. It makes a difference. I do want to mention, as I was sort of navigating my way through, and I still am, through entrepreneurship, this page you're looking at here, when I wrote it as a blog post several years ago, it ended up trending on Reddit for a few days as an image. And I didn't even understand what Reddit was at the time or how that even works. But again, I would encourage you to just grab this image, stick it somewhere, print it out, or put it somewhere near your desk, and keep it close and refer to this list as you're going through documents. It'll help you in ways big and small. Now, I know we're going to hold a Q&A until the end. If anybody has questions, you can feel free to share them now, and we'll hold them in the queue. I know I'm covering a lot of information here, throwing a lot at you. So if you have a question, feel free to share it, and we'll address as many as we can in the Q&A at the end. All right, let's get to resume bullet points. What can we do on our resume to make our words pop and everything we do sound fascinating and engaging and meaningful? All right, let's look at again, coming out of the blue book, Wait, How Do I Write This Email? Here's an example of a sort of unforgettable bullet points, as I call it. Let's read those. Let's read what it says on the page. Let's say Shannon Jones landed a job through a temp agency to file papers and answer phones at a medical practice. Maybe not the job she wants for 30 years, but it's what she has right now. So the typical work experience on her resume would say, answer phones and provide customer service at a medical office. Assist people with concerns in a friendly and courteous manner. File patient paperwork and help to keep the office organized. So listen, there's nothing wrong about these bullets, right? Nothing offensive, nothing factually incorrect. It's fine, but do these bullet points get you? Imagine you're wearing the employer hat. Are you excited to meet this person? Does anything jump out to you? What this actually looks like is the person took almost what the job duties laid out when she applied for the job and then pasted those into her resume, as if she's done nothing of note the entire time she's worked there. All she's done is exactly what they asked when they hired her. So it's just a lot of words without a lot of specifics. Now let's say, what can we do to make those bullets more interesting? We have to ask ourselves 3 questions. And you can feel free to write these down. How much, how often, how many? This is what journalists do to enhance a sentence, a paragraph, a story. How much, how often, how many? Let's start probing our experience and saying, what have we done in that job that is unique to our experience? Because anybody, for any job really, could write these bullets and they'd be correct. So what makes her special? So let's look at the unforgettable bullet points now. The same 3 from before, spruced up, and you'll see right away what we've done. Answer more than 75 phone calls a day at one of the busiest medical practices in Houston. Check in 50 to 60 patients each day and often work with 3 to 4 people at a time. Help to manage files for nearly 2,700 patients and digitize critical medical information. So what's different now? I'm sure you're saying at your seat, there are numbers now. We are putting specifics around what was previously a lot of mundane information. Instead of saying answering phones and providing customer service, we're saying answer more than 75 phone calls a day at one of the busiest practices in Houston. So now we are visualizing this person working hard all day, picking up phones, people coming and going, basically an air traffic controller inside a doctor's office. Checking in 50 to 60 patients a day, working with 3 to 4 people at a time up at the desk, 2,700 patients, managing their files. So we have a completely different picture of this person by simply asking how many, how often, and how much. So think about your own experience right now. Take 10 seconds in your own mind, and obviously think about it later too. Where are the numbers in your experience? They can be pertaining to small assignments, big assignments. They can be numbers from a single day, numbers over 6 months, a year. Where are your numbers? Are they dollar amounts? Were you involved in a fundraiser? How much money did you raise? How many people donated? How many people came to your event? How long did the fundraiser last? Do you see what I'm doing? You need to ask yourself questions from all angles of your experience. Where are the numbers in your successes, in your accomplishments? If you're not going to share those numbers and your resume is full of words with no numbers, there's nothing for the employer to hold on to. It's just words, and they just flip you over and go to the next. Your resume must contain numbers, because I promise you, and you probably did the exact same thing. The second I went to this slide, I bet you your eye went right to that number 75. I bet that's the first thing you looked at was 75, because everything else on the page is words. Numbers grab us. And in addition to numbers, if I can offer one other suggestion for your resume, incorporate proper nouns as often as possible. Did you work with certain clients? Name those clients. Did you visit certain cities? Name those cities. Do not leave it off the table. No one is going to know what you did until you put it on that piece of paper, and you are not going to have the opportunity to explain yourself when you apply through an online system with 500 other people and nobody knows what you did unless you had the chance to sit there across from them and explain. It has to all be contained on the page. So what are your numbers and what are your specifics? If you can fill your resume bullet points up with your numbers, clients, states, cities, whatever you've got that's different and unique, that's going to make your resume so interesting to read and dynamic and unique from every other person in that stack. Do not come across like this person. It's easy to do, and it's what most people end up creating with their resume is a lot of blah, blah, blah. But you're better than that. You have experience. No one else can share. She is the only person on the planet who can use these 3 bullets in this exact way. No one else can do exactly what she does. And you're the same way. You have a unique fingerprint and a unique contribution to the world thus far. The reader must know. Hopefully that point is clear. I can't see you if you're nodding your head or not, but let's just assume that for the moment that you are. Okay, let's go to point 3. My favorite topic, and I hope it'll change your thinking and open your eyes to a new way to approach what I believe is a worn out old model of the traditional cover letter. So what I want you to hold fast to is this concept. When you learn to tell your own story, doors will open. They do, because nothing is more interesting to people than a great story. But what we're so conditioned to read on a cover letter is an opening line like, "Hi, my name is such and such. I'm a recent grad from the University of Maryland. I think I would be the perfect fit for the account manager position at blah, blah, blah company." And then we proceed to basically put our resume in paragraph form and recap what they already read on that one sheet in another sheet in a drawn out format. That's not doing anything for anybody. We don't like writing it. The employer doesn't like reading it. It is a useless exercise. So I want you to think about yourself in the form of stories. You're not a job seeker, you're a storyteller. And one day you're not a business owner, you're a storyteller. One day you're not a leader, you're a storyteller. That concept should follow your entire life. So, for the purpose of a job application, I want you to think about the last 3 to 6 months when either if you're a student or working professional, you overcame a difficult situation. Could have been from a class, an internship, on the job, or your personal life. If you have nothing professional, although I would encourage you to keep the story in the professional realm if at all possible. But you need to show people a time where you had a challenge, and what were you going to do? You could have just hung it up and walked away, or you stuck it out and you got the job done. What kind of grit, what kind of hustle, what kind of wherewithal do you have? Who are you on the inside? That's what the employer needs to know. So, I know there's a lot on the screen, but let me read it with you. This is a reimagined first portion of a cover letter, and I want you to read it with me and understand what we're doing. Dear Mr. or Ms. or dear hiring professional, if you don't know who the person is. Part 1, I looked up at the sky and couldn't believe it. Storm clouds. For months, my team and I had prepared for the annual Big Nonprofit Association Charity Bash, in which students throw a party for 24 hours straight and raise money for children's hospitals. We had the campus quad reserved and the event ready to go. Then out of nowhere, a huge thunderstorm threatened to ruin everything. As team leader, I organized our group to take the dance party inside the gymnasium, notified all participants about the location change, and worked with an audiovisual tech to ensure the music played indoors. Within 3 hours, we had the big nonprofit association party back on track, and in the end collected $11,000 for charity, the most we had ever raised. All right, so what is going on here? What is up with that opening line? What happened to, hi, my name is so-and-so and I'd be the perfect fit? Why did we not do that? Because everyone does that. And it doesn't help us to grab their attention in the first 6 seconds, which research shows is about as long as someone's going to stick with you before they want to do something else. So we are introducing the challenge portion of our story right away. Storm clouds. Uh-oh, what's going on? Who wouldn't want to keep reading that? Just out of curiosity, like what am I reading? Is this a cover letter? Of course it is, and I'm going to show you why. And then part 2, we get into what was the situation? What happened? What was the challenge, the obstacle? And then the second paragraph, we get into specifics about how we solve the problem. And if the chat function is going, Colleen, you can tell me if we can get it going. I'd like for somebody to tell me, did you hear some specifics? Do you see some specifics in the story, some numbers? Can anybody type in the chat and tell me a number that caught their attention in this story somewhere on this slide?
Yeah, so folks can find that chat function on the GoToWebinar control panel. If that doesn't pop out easily for you, if you just want to type it in the question box, I can read it aloud.
Yeah, I'd love to see which numbers jump out to you, because again, we're getting back to just what we were talking about in the, let's see, is it coming in?
So we have 2 people that pointed out the $11,000.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Someone else pointed out 24 hours.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. $11,000 jumps right out at you. We didn't say in the cover letter, in the end, we had a great day. We raised a lot of money. Well, that's selling the story short, because we do not make the reader ever have to assume your numbers. If I wrote a lot of money, would you have thought $11,000? Would you have thought $1,000? Would you have thought $500? Own your numbers, own your successes. Put your numbers in the story. It enhances the worthiness of what you accomplished. Again, 24 hours straight. We fixed it in 3 hours. So again, as you tell your story, and I hope you're already starting to think, what story could I share? And I don't want you to be overwhelmed like, oh, I don't have a story in which I saved the day or saved the world. You don't need to. It could be something as small as a team project where somebody got sick or went on vacation or quit, and you had to pick up the slack, or you had to work tirelessly to find a great location for an event. It could be anything. We all have moments where we are up against the wall and it's like, what am I going to do? I'm either going to make it happen or I'm not. So you have to define yourself through those moments. I promise you, 9 times out of 10, I'm sorry, I just see a question now, so let me read it. Hold on. Yes, so to Ellie's question, the question was, typically we introduce ourselves first. So what I did not show you, and I'm sorry it's not on the very next line of this cover letter is, my name is such and such, and I want the blah 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 position. Okay, so we are hooking them first, introducing ourselves second. And it gets to my point, my final point I'll make in a minute, which is nobody cares what your name is, and nobody cares what job you want right now. All they need to know is, what kind of person am I talking to, or am I reviewing right now? What kind of inner qualities do they possess? I'll learn the person's name in a minute. That is immaterial right now. That's why we hook them by proving we can work through a challenge. I was going to say that so many employers, I've heard them say it, you've probably heard them say it, they'll say, oh, we'll teach you what we do at our company. We'll train you up, but we just want to know what kind of person we're hiring. I promise you, in every industry, 9 times out of 10, a boss is going to say that because the boss needs to hire high quality people first, train them up second. And that's why we lead with our story first, our name second. And elsewhere in this cover letter, the last piece of it, which for sake of time we're not getting into, is we learn how to show we've done a deep dive on the company and we can reference their recent successes. Let me give you a quick tip on that before we hop out of this topic and really out of this cover letter exercise. When you go for that job interview and the employer says one of two things, have you had a chance to look at our website yet? You should always say yes and have an answer ready. And they're going to say at the end, do you have any questions for me before you exit the room? In those moments, you need to come right back with, yes, I was on your website last night, and I have a couple of questions about your recent projects. Because you read about a project from their blog or their press releases or their latest news or their Facebook page. Listen to me right now, Maryland Terrapin graduates. Do not go in that room unable to answer that question, because what they're expecting you to do is to ask about salary, benefits, start time, vacation time. Where am I going to sit? What am I going to do? What's my role going to be? All these questions about me. And I promise you, it's a rare day when an applicant walks in that room and can talk confidently about that company's own work, because nobody ever does that. They only come in there ready to talk about themselves. And they're going to ask that question to 10 people that day, and 9 of them will let the employer down. And you're going to answer that question and say, yep, I have some questions about your projects. I was reading about your recent design on the blah, blah, blah building, and I have a question about how you pulled that off or your timeline. Anything you ask is going to put you into an upper echelon from every other applicant, because no one else thinks about other people. They only think about themselves. So please remember that. Do your homework and do it honestly. And it's going to show in that clutch moment where you have to perform. Okay. All right. The last point I want to make before we can do like more general Q&A, and I've already touched on it a little bit. Oh, actually, I forgot I put it in. I have a quick story for you on the power of stories. Led this workshop on this topic a couple of years ago for, it was actually at James Madison University for a class of the Public Relations Student Society of America chapter at JMU. So students who want to go work in PR. And I showed them this example, and I said, you got to start telling stories. And this one young woman in the room really took it to heart. And she wanted a summer internship that upcoming summer at a PR firm, either in DC or New York. I don't need to tell you, having all spent time in the DC area, competitive area for any industry, PR among them. But she told a story about how she worked through a tough PR project with her club, found success, led with stories up and down all the applications. She landed 12 interviews for summer internships at the biggest PR firms in the country. Ultimately was able to choose where she wanted to go. They all wanted to talk to her. She ended up working at a firm called Edelman, which is the biggest PR firm in the world. Edelman. They work with the biggest brands. They are way out there. You can look at their website. And she got the summer internship. And maybe 6 months ago, I said, I wonder what she's up to now. I wonder where she is. I looked her up on LinkedIn, and what do I find? Where does she work today? She's still there. Now she's an account executive. Started as an intern, and it started by telling a story. Because I promise you, they receive hundreds, if not thousands, of applications for summer internships at Edelman. And she cut through the noise by telling a story. Everyone else said, hire me, pick me, I'm a hard worker, I'm a passionate, natural born leader, I'm dedicated, I'm determined. She told a story. She didn't have to use any adjectives. She just had to give them an experience, a moment in time where she rose to the occasion, and they said, bring her in for the interview. And from there, she got it on her own. So just to underscore, stories are powerful, they're unexpected, they're not loosey-goosey like, oh, let me make my resume look like a cereal box or a Starbucks cup. It's not about being kitschy and cute and clever. It's about getting right to the heart of the matter. Let me give you a moment in time where I fought like all get out for an opportunity. I'll fight like that for you. That's what the employer needs to know in those first 6 to 20 seconds. All right. Now, as my last point, which I've already touched on a little bit, when you write and speak well, stereotypes, bias, and prejudice go out the window. I hold to that. I believe that teaching these skills runs deeper than grammar and periods and semicolons and adjectives and numbers. Writing and speaking well democratizes opportunity. People will hold up your resume or your headshot and they'll make all kinds of inferences on who they think you are based on their own worldview and what they think you're all about. None of that matters if you know how to communicate your value. If you can write about yourself, if you can write and speak about others, everything else goes away and falls away. And they say, the only person I remember, the only person who impressed me was that young man or that young woman who knocked me over with how they conducted themselves. And so I didn't want to get sort of too high level because I always like to stay down in the thick, in the weeds, in the details. That's where opportunities happen, by being tactical, fixing words, not just preaching to you. But I do want to leave you with this thought, that telling great stories, doing research on other people, being authentic in how you conduct yourself, that's what makes the difference. And that's when people want to get to know you, want to take you to that next interview round, want to hire you, want to bring you around and say, look who we just got. And I promise you, write that story in that cover letter, or you sit in that interview room and you can say to them, you can rattle off their projects, you will become the standard from which other applicants are judged. You become the bar because no one else is going to do it like you, because no one else prepared like you did. And you become the one they say, well, they didn't live up to that person, so forget it. That's the difference here. So I hope that you see these skills as much, much bigger and running deeper than a simple job application. Truly, it's how we should conduct our lives and how we should approach other people, making them feel special. And when we are required to stand on our soapbox and tell the world why we're great, use numbers, use specifics, and tell stories. The last couple points I want to make before we have a full Q&A, and I saw a question pop in I'll get to in a moment. I want to tell you that if you found this useful, guess what? You can hear more of me. I have a podcast. It's a mini podcast, I'll explain, through NPR, and it's called Take My Word For It. So if anybody here has the NPR One app or listens to NPR podcasts, you can find it. And I say podcast with air quotes because it's a 1 minute segment, one new one each week. And each 1 minute segment is a piece of advice drawn out of my books where I share a quick writing skill or a speaking skill. Essentially what we just did today, rattling off little tips to help us write and speak better across a variety of business or employment situations. One new segment each week. They're easy to read or listen to as you go to work, sit down at your desk, and operate with more productivity. So I do want you to know that it's out there, and I'd love for you to become a subscriber and tell your friends. The other thing, as I mentioned, that Ruben Education, we began as a company that works in the classroom to provide curriculum instruction for students at high school, middle school, high school, and college. We're also starting in January 2020, we're going to roll out a version of the program designed for job seekers and working professionals. So you're just out there in the world and you want to level up your skills or go after an opportunity. We're going to have a version of this program ready for you so you can teach yourself and be part of our online community. You can have, hey, how does this email look? How's this resume look? I have this opportunity coming up. How should I approach it? So have that ongoing dialogue and also go into the program and teach yourself new skills for resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, entrepreneurship situations, management, a big wide variety of short exercises to help you become stronger. So if you want to be on the waiting list to know when that's ready, that's the website. Just fill in your name, and by December, January, we'll send out a note that it's ready. It'll be accessed by I believe like for 3-month access, 6-month access, or a year. So all the information will come out in the next couple of months. But if you want to stay close to this and use these resources, as you go along in your life, I'd love to have you part of the community. So that's the website. So with that said, hopefully you've kept us on time. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them or have a dialogue about these topics or any others that are on your mind related to networking, writing, speaking, and everything in between. I think I
Great.
saw a
So,
question.
yeah, so for anyone who's on here, if you want to go ahead and type those questions into the question box, we will read them aloud for you. And we do have one here from Daniel Shapiro.
Yes, I
With
see that.
so
I
much
see that.
automated resume processing, is a cover letter as critical as it used to be? Do you still need one?
Let me answer you this way, Daniel. It's a good question. In my view, I don't care if they ask for one or not. You need to provide one that tells a story. Don't send them one that just takes your resume and summarizes it, because that's not doing anybody any good. Okay, but if you're able to submit through an online portal or through the employer directly, I promise you a great story of your work ethic can only elevate you in the process. They're not going to say, oh, I didn't ask for that fantastic example of his work ethic, I'm not going to ask him to come in for the interview now. That doesn't seem likely. So my advice to you is pick a great story to tell about yourself, run it by a friend or family member to say, is this appropriate? Does it put me in the best light? And then start to use that story for all of your outreach, because it will make you memorable and somebody that people want to get to know more. Victoria says, should a resume be kept to one page? If not, what is the max you would, I assume it says like recommend. Yes. So, and I don't know where everybody is in their career, but let's assume that you're in your first 5 to 10 years post-college, okay? Your resume needs to be one page. We need to be tough on ourselves. Decide what is most critical. I promise you, nobody wants to read 2 pages anyway, or 3 or 4. So you have to start getting tough on yourself and just keep your jobs. If let's say it's your most recent job, maybe it's 4 bullet points. One job before that, maybe it's 3. Maybe it's your job 2 jobs ago. Maybe you just have 1 bullet, your best thing you did at that job. You have to be critical. Value the person's time, lean on your numbers, make it the most engaging 1-page read you possibly can do. You can widen the margins a little bit. You can make the font a little smaller. That's okay, but keep it to a page. Don't go beyond. And if you're 5 years past college, start to remove some of your college achievements. Get them out of there. They don't hold as much water anymore because now you're out there in the world. So start cutting things loose as you age. Keep it relevant. Keep it closer to present day. Stick to 1 page. Everybody is happier because of that. See some other questions. In addition to your podcasts and books, can you highlight a few other resources for further learning? Well, I will tell you within my own world, if you go to rubeneducation.com, R-U-B-I-N education.com, we have a robust blog with hundreds of blog posts related to, again, just a variety of templates, scenarios. So there's a lot more there. I would also say that a website that I like that I think also lives in the details as well as any is called the Muse. There's so much career advice out there that's just too high level. The advice is just living at the surface, and it's like, okay, you're telling me that I need to really work hard and promote myself. How do I do that, right? Like, what does it actually look like in practice? So I think the Muse does a nice job of actually giving examples, as I do. Like templates, examples. That's what people need. It's what we want. We need someone to show us a starting point. And I think that they do a nice job. CNBC also has some interesting stuff from time to time. But if you really want some practical guides, the Muse and the Ruben Education blog has a lot of there. Do you plan on coming to campus and then to lead workshop in the near future? Not on the near horizon, but you never know. I've actually come back to the journalism school a couple of times and talked with students there. I do come to DC a good bit, so I am in the area on occasion. And I may be doing some work with the Maryland Business School over the next semester and into the spring. So that may prompt a reason to come to campus. I always welcome that chance to do so, but nothing just yet. This is where you'll find me today. Layla is in the webinar. Good questions, all. Any other questions coming through? I want you to hold fast to these two ideas. If nothing else today, when someone asks you to prove yourself, tell a story. And when it's time to make a connection or a meaningful relationship, learn about other people. It is one of the shortest, quickest exercises that has the deepest impact. Imagine if you're an employer, put yourself in the employer's shoes for a second. Imagine you're sitting there at your desk and the 8th of 9 job applicants walks in, you're exhausted. And that person sits down and the first thing they say, the applicant says is, I want to tell you that I was reading your LinkedIn profile last night and I read how you started at this company in entry level and now you're an executive vice president. What was your path like to do that? Can I tell you how that question completely changes the game in that room? In the first 10 seconds, you were just another applicant. Let's get through this interview, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, you're asking questions about that person's career path, and they are enamored with you. They almost forget to conduct the interview because you let them talk about their own career for such a long time. You're winning them over with questions, not with your answers. Think about that. I want you to think about how you are approaching people from now on in your life. You want a coffee meeting? Learn about them before the coffee meeting. You want a mentor? Study up on what they've done. You need a reference letter? Learn about what they've done or what they're up to. Always do your homework first. It will open a door time and again. It can change your whole life, and it can change every single opportunity that comes your way because you were willing to think about other people and be selfless and curious, and everyone else was all about me, me, me. Please think about that as you go through your life. Anything else, Colleen?
That looks like we've covered all of our questions. Thank you so much again, Danny. That was really insightful. I know I'll personally be editing the emails that I send out today. We will be sending a recording of the webinar to everyone who registered, and it'll be posted to our YouTube channel. And I'll make sure to include Danny's contact information if you do want to reach out to him personally. But otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much again, Danny, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a wonderful day and go Terps.
Thank you. Go Terps.